When it comes to controllers, there's always a certain feel to them. They either feel cheap, standard, or premium. The PXN P5 belongs into that last group, with one big exception. I got here one of the two collaboration models for $40, but you can either get it cheaper in a base color or more expensive for the 8K model. But enough of that, let's get into my first impressions. Picking the P5 up for the first time was great. It feels quite good and hefty. The sticks are smooth and the buttons provide the right amount of resistance. The triggers and bumpers are probably one of my favorite parts. They feel like they belong onto a far more expensive controller. The more I use them, the more I like them. Something about the good parts just feels right. There are some downsides though. One with the controller, as this is a horrible D-pad in my opinion. There's no travel and the switches they chose provide almost no feedback. Also, I'm convinced that down is harder to press than the rest. The other is the dongle. While nice looking and working great, I highly dislike that it has to blink the entire time while the controller is off, as I usually have the dongles plugged into the side of my monitor and constantly facing me. I next get to the contents of the box, which is themed after the collab in my case. And let's be honest here, I love this imprint of the Mecha here, it looks absolutely beautiful. And in this beautiful box, you get the controller itself, the dongle, a USB A to C cable, and of course, the manual. Now this is not necessary, but it would have been nice if the controller came with something for the game it collabed with, like a small amount of in-game currency or skin or something, seeing how the game is free to play with in-app purchases anyways. Functionality wise, the P5 advertises Hall effect sticks and triggers, normal and hairpin trigger mode with physical switches, love to see it, 4 macro buttons on the back that support up to 32 key macros each, adjustable dead zones, gyro mode, air mouse mode, which is bafflingly only supported while connected with a cable, 1000 Hz polling rate, 1000 mAh battery, and compatibility of PC, Switch, phones, and car infotainment systems. Moving on, I get to the actuation force. At first, it seems decent, with A needing 115 grams, B and X 120 grams, and Y 125 grams. But I then come to the D-pad, where up takes 210 grams, left 220 grams, right 160 grams, but the worst is down with 320 grams. It is insane to me that one button can take twice the force than another one. Last is the start with 285 grams and select with 230 grams, and L3 with 670 grams and R3 with 680 grams. It is wild to me that a controller can feel this good initially, but has buttons this inconsistent. Let's move on to the circularity error rate. Hardware tester shows an expected 0.3% for both, while joystick tester gives 0.4% for both. But what it also shows is a polling rate of 200 Hz with the dongle. The polling rate tester also shows only about 500 Hz with an average of 400. I then tested it over USB, where I got the advertised 1000 Hz. At this point, I checked the advertising material again, as I thought it said wired and dongle, but turns out they only really specify wire. I then finished this up by testing Bluetooth, and it's just like the dongle, a basic 200 Hz rate. All in all, this is quite disappointing, and I wonder if the 8K one is any better. Maybe I'll check it out if you guys are interested. Now, this time around I'm gonna skip the sound test, as it overall sounds very generic and it's basically like an Xbox One controller. In general use, the P5 is pretty good all things considered, but while playing games I really struggle with the D-pad. I'm already not a fan of the shield style, but this lack of travel and feedback is horrible. I never truly felt like I was pressing a direction intentionally, and it baffles me how this made it past the prototyping stage. Even if the force would be consistent, it would still feel bad to press. Staying on the D-pad, let's quickly do the classic Contra test. Here the D-pad is actually really good, and I have no bad inputs except when pressing up and wriggling right. This 1-to-1 fits, with how right only takes 160 grams for actuation force. I then come to the triggers, and I love to be able to switch between two modes with a physical switch, but I'd like for the trigger to have a little bit less slack while in hairpin mode. Then last I get to the air mouse mode, which essentially lets you control the mouse with the left stick and click with the triggers. I think it's an interesting idea, but having it work only with a cable is kinda dumb, since I think most people who would use this mode connect it wirelessly to a living room PC. The gyro itself is a native implementation and works just like you would expect. Nothing special here. And now to the macros. They do go up to 32 steps as advertised and do include the start and select buttons, but it seems that it loses sync quite badly. They work fine for training inputs, but I wouldn't trust them for timing sensitive actions. Finally, I get to the compatibility. The P5 worked flawlessly on the advertised devices, and I do like that you can switch between the modes with a physical switch on the back, as it doesn't leave much room for ambiguity. I of course also tested the PS3 and 4. As for the PS3, it works flawlessly with the included dongle, with the exception of the gyro, but I can't remember the last game where I needed a 6-axis support. And then the PS4 didn't work at all. In conclusion, the PXN P5 could be a great controller, but the buttons need to be more consistent with their required force. And the D-pad needs a big overhaul to become good. And I mean, to begin with, why does the collar have to look so cheap and out of place? Would I recommend this controller? At this point in time, no. The bad just outweighs the good. And that's it. Did this review help you make a purchase decision? Do you want to see more reviews? Is there a device you want me to check out? Well, just subscribe, like, and leave a comment if you want.